Every painting begins with small things: a brush, a splash of color, a page waiting to be filled. But with each stroke, those small things become something more, a doorway into a hidden world. This is the story of 4 fairies who found their way onto my paper. The first home I painted in this series was this mushroom tower. I imagined it rising from the mossy forest floor, its red-capped roofs like umbrellas after rain. The vines twist around the tower, curling toward the sky, as if the forest itself wanted to help shape this fairy home. If you look closely, lanterns glow in the windows. That is the work of the fairy who lives here, the lantern fairy. She drifts from window to window, carrying a small golden light in her hands. Her wings shimmer softly, casting a gentle glow as she moves. Well, a large glow, that purple glow, which you will see as I continue painting, and I did not decide to make that glow until after I'd already mostly painted the image, and I felt like she was not showing up the way that she was meant to. And so I added this purple behind her. She reminds me that even the smallest light can guide someone home. Sometimes in life, we forget how such a single act of kindness, a single word of encouragement, can mean to someone who feels lost. But this fairy shows me that even the tiniest spark can change that darkness. When I painted this piece, I started with strong colors, these bold reds and deep greens and heavy browns. And at first the tower felt too sharp, which you'll eventually see. You see, it's all blended into one yucky mess. It was almost too heavy for the softness of the fairy of the world. But as I layered gently, then I put a wash over the top to soften the edges. And these harsh lines that you see here, they eventually melted away until the whole painting glowed as if her lantern light had touched every corner. The second home belongs to a fairy who lives in an ancient tree, and I did not record painting this one, but I'm going to show you how I put together this fairy garden. So the doorway is tucked inside the trunk, hidden from plain sight, which you'll see in a few minutes, like a secret only the forest knows. Moss blankets the roots and leaves weave over into the quiet canopy. The air here feels still, as if time slows down around this home. And the fairy of the tree is patient. She doesn't rush or chase. Instead, she waits. For those who truly seek her, for those who are willing to pause and listen. Painting this piece taught me something about patience. The bark was dark, textured, and full of detail. It felt heavy at first, even overwhelming. I'll show you both pictures so that you can see as I worked, I softened the shadows and blended the edges and balanced the weight of the tree with the fairy's gentleness. And by the end, the house didn't feel hidden anymore. It felt protected. And the fairy who waits there felt like a reminder that not everything has to happen quickly, and that the quiet strength is still strength. The third painting is of a rounded little house crowned by giant with a giant fern, so I decided to stick these ferns in here as I make a fairy garden. I imagined it like a seed pod that had grown into a home, soft and curved, with green fronds spilling over like the roof having a living crown. There's a coziness to this house, almost like a cottage wrapped in nature's arms. The fairy who lives here is playful and nurturing, and she tends to the plants, waters the moss, and whispers to the roots. Wherever she goes, growth follows. Her story reminds me that even in small spaces, life can flourish. Growth doesn't always mean something grand or towering. Sometimes it's simple and quiet, like ferns unfurling or moss spreading softly along a stone. Painting this piece felt different from the others. The roundedness of the house was gentle and comforting, almost childlike. Adding the fern on top made it feel alive, as if the home itself were breathing. And just like the fairy, the painting reminded me that joy and care often show up in the smallest details. To me, this little house feels like a promise that when we nurture what we have, when we care for the spaces around us, magic grows there too. The last painting in this series was the Castle Fairy House, surrounded by tall ferns like a hidden forest fortress. And they were not easy to make. I pictured this home rising proudly among the trees, or really the ferns. Its stone walls softened a little bit by some vines and moss. Its towers peeking through a sea of green. It is larger and stronger than the others, but still held gently by the forest. The fairy who lives here is a guardian. Actually, there's a couple of them, and they protect the paths between worlds, making sure that magic is never lost. They stand and watch, not with harshness but with care, keeping balance between strength and softness. While I painted this piece, I felt this series coming full circle. The castle was bold, its structure firm, its presence commanding. I was so excited to start this painting, but I wanted it to belong in the same dreamlike world as the other fairy houses. And so I tried layering these washes to add softness, and I let the ferns embrace the walls until the castle felt less like stone and more like this story. This fairy's story reminds me that true strength is not about being unyielding. It's about protecting what matters most, about standing firm while still allowing softness to grow around you. With this final piece, the world of the fairies felt complete. 4 homes, 4 guardians, each carrying a different kind of magic. Thank you for stepping into this fairy world with me. I hope these paintings remind you to look for magic in the trees, in the sky, and in the quiet corners of your own day. If you'd like to see more art and more stories, subscribe and join me for the next adventure.